I'm Margaret Ryan, Clean Skies News, and I'm joined here today by Bill Hederman. He's Senior Vice President, Washington Research Group, a unit of Concept Capital. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Margaret. It's nice to be here.
When you were at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, it was in the immediate post-Enron, post-California market collapse period. The CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, is right now looking at how it can overhaul its regulation in the wake of last year's price ups and downs. What do you see for them? What are some of the red flags you would raise? What should they be looking at?
Well, you know, it is strikingly similar in terms of when I was recruited by Chairman Pat Wood to come to FERC, the Congress had lost confidence in that commission's ability to watch its beat and keep things in order. And we see a little bit of the same situation now at the CFTC, that Congress wants to see a sharper eye and what we used to say at FERC, hear that nightstick on the fence, so that people know somebody's around who knows what's going on and tends to provide order. So I think the red flag here is that there's a commitment to do something new. From the hearings that we just finished hearing about, there'll be position limits and probably some change in the exemptions that are allowed. The first step here will be that it's commission imposed limits as opposed to leaving that discretion with the exchanges. And then they have to thread a needle of getting Congress to have more confidence in what they're doing, and at the same time not going so far that they lose the confidence of market participants. Mm-hmm. So they want to get that right. It probably involves some exercise of position limits pretty soon. I expect in September we'll hear a proposal and then go through the rulemaking process. But I don't expect those position limits to be particularly tight out of the gate, because you don't want to chase the activity away from the exchanges. There's a broad administration commitment to use exchanges. If you make these tight enough that it threatens the whole business model of everybody participating in the exchange, you move things to over-the-counter, and the dark markets don't solve anything until they have their jurisdiction extended there.
Well, what about those dark markets, over-the-counter? That's been raised repeatedly in the 3 days of hearings the CFTC did hold the last couple of weeks. And talk about extending the CFTC authority to over-the-counter markets. Is that feasible?
Yeah. My colleagues at Washington Research Group, who follow broadly the financial services side, expect that when reform moves forward, it will include extension of CFTC jurisdiction.
Does that require new legislation from
Congress? It does
Congress?
require new legislation, yeah.
Okay.
So in a way, that could give the CFTC a graceful way to move forward here, but say we can't go any further on the exchange limits until you give us the authority on the over-the-counter side as well.
No, but Chairman Barney Frank and Colin Peterson just a week ago said they're near agreement on some kind of legislation, which appears it'll include that.
Exactly. So when it's but you don't want to then prematurely put position limits in place on the exchange activity that, as the participants mentioned in their conversations at the hearings, would move them to the OTC activity.
Well, tell me, when you talk about position limits, how strict can you be? I think there was a great deal of discussion about, how tight could you make those position limits without actually doing damage to the market you're trying to regulate?
Yeah, well, again, it's another balance question. You want to make the limits such that they're not affecting the price formation process for reasons other than liquidity reasons. So you want to have a limit high enough that you still have liquidity and low enough that you don't have players who just by showing up tip the boat.
Now, FERC and the CFTC have some interchange back and forth. What is their relationship right now?
Well, that's an interesting area, Margaret. When I arrived at FERC, I got a call like in the first week from my counterpart, Greg Mosick, who was the director of enforcement at the CFTC, and he said, "Hey, let's go have lunch." This was before I knew that FERC and the CFTC were banging heads. And so we established a very good working relationship down at that level of my oversight and investigations unit and his enforcement unit. There's always going to be some tension because, for example, at that time, FERC was under immense congressional pressure to release information, put it up on a website. Greg's office and Justice, et cetera, were all enforcement people, and they were furious about having potential evidence in criminal cases go up on the internet. So there was a natural friction there, but we worked through that, and over the years that we were working together, we had staff at each other's meetings and strategy sessions. We were working as a real team for the public interest. And that as the Amaranth and ETP cases moved forward and there was some jurisdictional headbanging and so forth, that seemed to unfortunately deteriorate. But my sense is that the changes in leadership in both offices, again, will be a very productive and fruitful connection again, because I think that Norman Bay and Steve Obey are both high professional enforcement attorneys, and I expect them to find a way to work together.
Now, CFTC oversees futures, and that does have some blowback effect on physical prices, doesn't it? I mean, the ones where FERC sees the action.
Well, FERC believes so. Okay. It's an open question. It's a question in the courts, and both sides have evidence on that question.
Okay. Well, going forward, now, what do you expect to see this fall? From the CFTC, from the Congress, some action both places?
Yeah, I expect the CFTC to exercise more jurisdictional authority here, probably with some kind of position limits and probably some rules on the exemptions. I expect Congress to do something on the issue of OTC jurisdiction, probably expand into that. And we will see out of that probably more activist action on the part of the Commission, the CFTC, to get a handle on this. They've put a lot of staff work into it, and now the commissioners sound ready to move, and they seem to be saying, we know that this is a challenge and something that needs to be balanced. And so I think we can expect to see a responsible action taken.
Bill Hederman, Senior Vice President, Washington Research Group, thanks so much for joining us.
You're very welcome, Margaret. Thank you.
I'm Margaret Ryan, Clean Skies News.